All right. So PGP, I'm nicknaming it here email off the record. The idea of PGP, it's called pretty good privacy, and it's actually really good privacy. PGP is a way of encrypting a message, and the idea behind it is that when I encrypt a message, I'm encrypting it for you, and only you can read it. And I'm using your public key to encrypt it for you. And I've got a diagram for that on the next slide here. So that's kind of what I'll be going over here. And so yeah, I liken it to putting your message in a locked envelope. Once I've put that message in the envelope, then bad people can't see it. And just to dispel some fears, this is what a private key looks like, and this is what a public key looks like. They're just big chunks of text. So when we're talking about keys, you don't have to be worried about all the like fancy little lock graphics and key graphics and little arrows. They're just text, but the way it works is what's important. So you can copy paste it, you can rename the file that it's in, you can memorize it, you can do all these weird things with text, and it's nice and easy. So the problem is that bad people can spy on you. You want to send, a message over here to anybody, but if the message is just normal text, anybody can see it. So by using encryption, you lock that little envelope, and then people with the key can go ahead and read it. So the reason that's important is because this is called public key cryptography. The idea is that you've got private keys and public keys. What happens is you've got your lock, you've got your key. You've got your private key that only you have that nobody else has. And what you do is you give all these locks out to everybody in the entire world. And if they want to send you a message, they lock up that little envelope and give it to you, and you're the only one with the key. You can read the message, but you're the only one. So it's this kind of like, they call it asymmetric. It's putting half the piece of information out there for everybody to see and keeping one piece of information very, very secret. And it's very important that you keep that block of text that says private key very, very secret. Otherwise, this whole thing is undone. And so you should also find out what your friends' public keys are so that you can send messages to them. This is the hard part, is actually this social back and forth of exchanging keys, because it's not like Google Chat, you just pop it open and you're like, hey, what's your email address? Oh, I've sent you a message, that's wonderful and easy. There's this like, before you can send a secure message, you have to go find out what their public key is. That's the hard part. So by doing this here today, hopefully we'll make that a little bit easier. So one thing you can do with PGP is sign a message. That proves that the message was sent from this person, and that message was the message they sent. If somebody tried to tamper with the message and say, oh, he actually said this, it wouldn't work out mathematically, and you'd know that it was wrong. Or if it was like, oh yeah, somebody sent that message, but it's actually this person. That's also what signing hopes to prevent. You can also, so validation. Encryption is actually for the privacy of your message. You can use any combination. There's, on these programs, there's a checkbox, sign, encrypt, and you can get to choose which one you want to do. Now, I'm only providing a really basic overview. If you're actually like a journalist in the Middle East, this is not going to be sufficient. You're going to have to do a lot of practice. You're going to have to do a bunch of research. This is just the basics. But I recommend people use it. That way they get familiar with it and better with it. So again, we're just talking about those big blocks of text. So the first thing that you can do here with Thunderbird is go and download Thunderbird. Now, I'm not going to really go into this, but how do you know you're actually getting the real Thunderbird that doesn't have a bunch of viruses and bad government stuff in it? Figure that out. I'm not going to discuss it, but it's important. So you go download Thunderbird, really easy. You click it, you install it, it comes up and it says, hey, what's your name, what's your email address, what's your password? This is like every other email program. You just set it up and it's like, oh, okay. We've found that the Gmail server is here and that looks good, so if that's good, then click OK. So it's easy, you just click next like anything else. To get the encryption part though, you're going to want to go to the Tools menu and the Add-ons menu, and you're going to download Enigmail, which again, how do you know that this is a good Enigmail and not some evil Enigmail? Check it out, find it out, do your little research. Once Enigmail is installed, you'll have this Open PGP menu at the top, and you can do a setup wizard. The setup wizard will take you through the basics here of whether you want to sign everything that you send or sign only things, only specific messages to specific people. You can change this when you send a new message, but this is just your preferences, like, you know, how many people do I want to annoy by encrypting things or whatever. Here, you know, do you have public keys for everybody or do you only have public keys for somebody? How do you want the mail program to behave? And other stuff. And then the last one here is, do you want to create a new key pair or do you have an existing public and private key that you want to create? So the first time you do any of this, you're going to be creating a public and private key, those blocks of text. Once you have those, you're good, and you skip some of these steps. I'm taking you from 0 to setup on all these programs. So if you want to use, you know, multiple computers, at some point you're going to take your existing public-private key and you're going to import them instead of creating new keys each time. But that's where you do that. And then when you're creating the key, you're going to create a passphrase. It's really important that you create a good passphrase for this, because that private key is supposed to only be able to get used when you have the right password for it. If you have no password or an easily guessed password, then there's like no security on that block of text. And you know, I show that block of text on my little presentation here, and you're all able to pretend to be me. Now, that's not really my private key, but if it was, I'd be screwed. So, good password here, and one that you can hopefully memorize too, because where else are you going to write it down? You know, if you're on the road trying to send a secure email, oh, it's on a sticky note, how convenient. So, good passphrase, and you'll be typing that in basically every time you want to decrypt a message, and sometimes, depending on the mail program, when you want to encrypt things too, or sign things. So once you're done with that, you go to the key management window here, and this is where you actually do the work of setting up your encryption with people. You upload your public key to the key server. This is how the whole world knows what your public key is. You want this widely disseminated. You want everybody in the world to know that this key number really is Will Bradley. That way, if somebody ever tries to impersonate me, you look at that and you're like, oh, that's not right. I know the real one. But if nobody really knows which one is which, it kind of breaks down. So this is one way you do it, by uploading your key to a key server. It makes you easy to find. The second step is, you know, checking out the key server, and then you ask, hey, Will, is this really your key? And then I can say yes. You also want to back up your private key somewhere, because if you go through this effort and you make a public-private key pair, and then you lose your private key somewhere, there's nowhere else that it exists unless you went to that work yourself. That's good, but it's kind of bad if somebody sends you an encrypted message 2 years later and you're like, whoever you are, I'm sorry, I can't read it because I lost my private key. So find somewhere, you know, like, I don't know, maybe you print it out and put it in your safe under your mat, I don't know. But somehow keep that separate as well, because you don't want to lose it. Once you've uploaded, so that wizard right there is really easy. Upload your key to the key server, it asks you some questions, and then you're done. Then you can search for keys here. So you type in some email address and you choose which key server you want to find, and then it's like, oh, hey, I found that dude. And again, just because they found me doesn't mean that that's really me. So you're going to want to say, hey, Will, is your key ID actually 07298B, whatever? And then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's mine. And then you can trust that. But you don't want to go about downloading and trusting and using this, because, you know, my evil stepbrother could upload a key that says that it's for Will Bradley also. And the only way you'd know the difference is if you asked me. Or there's a thing called signing where, you know, he trusts that that's me and he trusts that that's me, and a lot of other people that you trust that that's me. That's a little bit more complex though. The basic rule of thumb is, how do you know that's really me? Double check. And then we go to making a message. So here, this is the normal Thunderbird make a new email window, but with the Enigmail plugin, you've got this open PGP button here, and that will let you sign messages and encrypt messages. Now, there's one problem here, is you're putting in the little, send an email to this guy, and here's the subject, and here's the secret message. But what happens if you forget to click the encrypt button here, and you just click send? It just sends unencrypted. And so now, your evil stepbrother knows about your secret birthday plans, and that's not good. I would rather, if you, in order to encrypt something, you go through like a two-step process where it's like, encrypt, okay, I can see that it's encrypted. Now save, now send, now it sends. And it actually kind of does this. When you click send and you've clicked the little encrypt button, it says, oh, okay, now it's all encrypted and it's good, and now it's sending and stuff, and you can push cancel if you want. But if you didn't click the encrypt button, it just went. There's no second chance. So that's kind of scary. So triple, quadruple check that little checkbox there before you're sending something. And that's where those per recipient rules can come in, where it's like, oh yeah, this is Jeremy, I'm totally going to send an encrypted message because we always do that when we're sending stuff to Jeremy. So that's nice, but a little bit scary right there, especially if you're new to this. Now, on the decrypting side, you receive this message that says begin PGP message, and it's all this text. And most of these programs will automatically pop open a thing that says, hey, do you want to decrypt this message that's been sent to you? And so then you can type in your nice good password there. Now, again, one thing you're going to want to double check here is, if you see this window pop up that says enter your passphrase, do you just type in your password to any window that pops up that says enter your passphrase? You're probably going to want to check, I don't know, maybe push cancel, click on the message again, maybe make sure that this message is really coming, this pop-up window is really coming from the Thunderbird program and not some website that you happen to have open. I've had this pop-up come up when I've just got Thunderbird in the background and maybe a new message comes in, and I'm browsing the internet. And I'm like, why is it asking me for my passphrase when I'm browsing the internet? Oh, because Thunderbird's being stupid. So be careful there. The other thing to be careful of is that the contents of what you're saying might be encrypted here, but PGP is not encrypting the subject line, who it's from, or who it's to. So they can tell that I'm messaging Jeremy or some evil person, and they can tell when and how often and all that other info, and subject line like subject going to kill so and so. No, that's not good. So it pays to know what bits are being secured and how when you're using these programs, and just send encrypted. Today, when you talk to other people who set this up as well, just send encrypted messages back and forth for fun. Because if the first time you use this is some time when you think the government's out to get you, well, they're really good at this. If you make one little mistake, the bag's open and it doesn't really help anymore. So practice it. Once you've typed that in, you'll see up here it says good signature. So that's the sign part. And then down here you can see that my secret message has been decrypted. So that's great. And you can see, there's all this little information if you want to double check who's really signing what and all that stuff. It's green because I've told Thunderbird that this signature from this person is super duper, like really trusted. There's different levels of trust that you can stick, and you can just have fun managing your keys all day. And then it'll reflect out when you get a message from the person. So moving on, Mailvelope is a Chrome plugin. It's also a Firefox plugin. Did somebody die outside? We're okay? Yeah? So Mailvelope, it's a browser plugin for Chrome. They're coming out with Firefox right now. Now, there's some problems here. I don't know if anybody is aware of the controversy surrounding CryptoCat, but JavaScript cryptography is considered harmful, or at least a lot of cryptographers think that. There's a lot of reasons behind that. JavaScript runs in web browsers. It gets transferred to you over the wire. And the JavaScript libraries themselves might not have very good hardware cryptographic random number generators and access to that. And Blaine wants to raise his hand.
Do you know that this isn't using native client since it's only Chrome?
Native client for the Chrome plugin, I don't know. Maybe I should ask. I'm not a JavaScript person, so maybe you should ask. This is on GitHub. Mailvelope is a project on GitHub, and I'm subscribed to the issues. This has been getting a lot of press recently. There's a lot of, I get an issue every day, and somebody's like, hey, we should put this in the Chrome store, and people are like, oh, hey, if you do that, this bad thing will happen, and there's a lot of back and forth on how to distribute this in a secure way. But anyway, my overall recommendation is try to not use web-based, browser-based stuff if you can avoid it, because the program that you download that you can see every bit of is going to be more secure. Or it's possible to be more secure. There's an upper limit to how secure you can be with a browser plugin running inside of Chrome. Can you trust Chrome? Can you trust the latest Chrome download that updated last night at 2 a.m. when you weren't looking? You're downloading this thing from the Chrome Web Store. Can you trust the Chrome Web Store? So there's a lot of issues here, but if there's no way that you're going to use Thunderbird and you need encryption, here we go. It's a webmail thing. So mailvelope.com or the Chrome Web Store, download, and you click this Add to Chrome button, and it puts this little lock icon in your Chrome or Firefox browser. And to set it up, you're going to go to Options here. And this is if you want to generate a key. I don't, again, recommend really generating a key inside of Mailvelope because I don't know how cryptographically secure the JavaScript random number generators are and all that stuff. Still, if this is the only way I can get you to do it, okay, here's how you do it. And so you type it in here. You can also import a key right here where you just copy and paste that text that I showed you earlier. Then to do the key server portion, you have to do this manually. There's no, in Thunderbird, there's a little button and you just upload straight to key servers. Here you have to copy and paste it into the key server, so I'll show you that. So you go into your display keys, highlight your private public key pair, and click Export Display Public Key. And then you can just Google key server if you wanted to. There's two really popular ones. One is the MIT, pgp.mit.edu. The other one is SKS, which is kind of like, it's kind of like a pool. The SKS includes MIT in its queries, so it's kind of like a meta aggregator of key servers. I'll show you SKS. When you go to their website, it's kind of confusing. You have to click Interact with the key servers, then you can extract or submit. We're going to submit our public key, and then we're going to extract our friends' public keys, just like we did in Thunderbird, just manually here. So here, it gives you instructions. You paste your public key, and then it's like, okay, great. And then you want to find a public key that somebody else has. You can type in their email address or their full name or something, and then it'll come back and say, oh, hey, we found this public key. And then you can copy and paste that. And you just import keys, paste it in that little text box in the plugin, and you're good to go. And then you can see here you've got this key ring of people that you've downloaded or yourself or whatever, just like Thunderbird. Now, before you actually go using Mailvelope, there's a couple problems. By default, you want to go to the security because by default, they're decrypting your message on the page of the email provider. So this works, basically this sniffs what's on the page in Gmail. So you just go to Gmail and you're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, hey, new encrypted message. Would you like to decrypt the message? And you're like, okay, click. And you type in your password and then it decrypts the message. But if you leave it on the default, it will decrypt the message into the Chrome window or the Gmail window. So if you don't trust Gmail or whatever's Gmail's infrastructure or any of the other plugins that you've got to trust a lot in order to decrypt the message in the Gmail window. It kind of defeats the purpose, and it's no skin off your back. You just click this little thing, it loads your message in a pop-up, you read it, it's fine. So I don't see any reason not to check that box and every reason to check it. You also need, for some additional security, you need to choose a character code and a custom color. That's this in the top right. on all of the plugin, all of the Mailvelope plugin windows, it will show you that color and that little 3-digit code. That's your only protection against some random pop-up window. Like, I kind of wish that Thunderbird had this, right? Because some random pop-up window that says, hey, type in your password. Well, is that the Mailvelope program that you hopefully trust, or is that some other website that looks like it? And they try to work around that by getting this little code that you know, that hopefully only you know, that you can double check before you go about typing your password in or anything. So set those. Then let's go ahead and send a secure message. So you pop open Gmail, and this works with other programs too. They're trying to expand it to like Outlook.com and Outlook Web Access in your company's email. I think they're trying to do it on Zimbra too. So all these webmail providers that are so popular, they're trying to load this in so that it just pops open when you try to make a new message. It's got this little compose icon that hovers over your compose window. You click on that before you start typing your email. So here's how you do it. Write who it's going to, write the subject line, which isn't going to get encrypted, remember, and you do not type anything in the body. You click on the little button, and you type your message in the pop-up window that pops up. And you know it's a good pop-up window because it's got that little code there. When you're done typing, you click the lock, you choose who you want to encrypt it for, and you've got to manually add yourself right now. That way you can see messages that you've sent, because you're encrypting it for him. Well, now he's the only person that can read it. You want to encrypt it for him and you, unless you don't, but I do. So you add those people that you want to be receiving the message, and then it encrypts it, and there you go. You click the transfer button, it does some JavaScript magic, and now you've got this nice Gmail compose window with your to address, your subject, and your encrypted body, and now it's okay to send. And so that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with Thunderbird. I kind of wish Thunderbird did more of this. It's manual, it's more steps, but you can verify at each step that you're hopefully doing something secure. Whereas if too much is done for you, you just kind of have to trust the program, and who wants to do that? So this is nice, before you hit send, unless you make a big mistake and just hit send before encrypting anything, which I can't help you there. At least you know that the thing you're clicking send on is this exactly, and you have kind of more of a chance to hopefully catch yourself before making a mistake. So with Gmail and Mailvelope, you receive an encrypted message. It will detect, it's kind of hard to see here, but it says, encrypted message, and it overlays that with this lock icon. You just click that. It asks you for your passphrase. You check that this is really Mailvelope, type in your passphrase, and then you've got your decrypted message. So there's actually a couple more security features in Mailvelope than in Thunderbird, but that's because Mailvelope is inherently less secure than Thunderbird. So it's kind of like half a dozen, either way. That's a bad colloquialism. It's kind of, yeah, there's pros and cons to both, but what matters most is what's going to actually keep you secure and how you behave properly, knowing what's going on here. So now I'll go into iPhone and Android. Now, first of all, trying to transfer your private key onto an iPhone or an Android device, you're not going to want to email it to yourself. You're not going to want to use Google Docs or Dropbox, because those all go up to the internet and then back down, and the whole goal of this is that Dropbox and evil people aren't going to be able to see your private key. You want your private key to never leave your little 1-foot radius of security bubble around you. So I would recommend in the OpenGP app, there's instructions on how to set up iTunes syncing, where you plug your phone physically into your computer, use iTunes, and transfer a file directly, so that it's not leaving your little bubble of security. Also, Android has a couple options. I've used AirDroid in the past. It's not that great. You're going to want to use it in your house with nobody else connected to your Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. But at least it's only over your Wi-Fi network and not going up to Dropbox and back. So just think about what you're doing. But anyway, with OpenGP, you're going to have to copy and paste public keys. So you're going to have to go over here to the MIT key server and find your keys and copy and paste them into the app, because Apple has determined that other mail clients conflict with their mail client and they won't let mail clients on the App Store. So this isn't even a mail client, it's like a PGP message client. And at the very last step, you get to copy your encrypted message off into an email. So thanks, Apple. But it does work if you really need to send a PGP message or decrypt a PGP message on your iPhone. So here, yeah, you copy and paste that into the little import window, and then you've got the little key ring here, and then you can compose a message once you've done that whole private key work. Encrypt a message here, and then you see you've got the encrypted message in the background, and it asks you what you want to do. You know, copy it to a clipboard, send it as an email. The nice thing about PGP is you can send it kind of anywhere. It's just text, so you could, like I said, print it out or send it as a text message if that works. It doesn't have to be an email. And so you just copy paste it into an email or whatever, and that kind of works for iPhones. That's the best I was able to find, unfortunately. With Android, we actually have programs. There's K9 and then R2Mail2. I personally will show you R2Mail2 because it's kind of an all-in-one thing that just works. K9 is, I think, less expensive or free, and it's open source and stuff, but it's kind of a pain in the neck to get going. So you're free to use it. I like K9, but I like R2Mail2 a little bit better. So here's the accounts screen, just like a normal app that you might have. So you set up your Gmail account in there just like normal, and then you're going to click the key icon right here to manage your keys. And here's your private keys. Under Other is all the public keys that you've got. To import and export keys and stuff, you're going to go to the menu item here, and so you can search for, somebody on a key server, and it finds it for you, and it's really nice. I think you actually, when you're doing this, the trick is to keep your private keys separate from your public key when you're importing it. There's a little bit of weirdness when trying to get these keys onto mobile devices. But anyway, so you search, and it's got a full inbox that you could just sync all your messages. You could use this as your main email app every day if you wanted to. And oh, I forgot. So one of the warnings at the beginning of all this mobile stuff, think about the security implications of walking around with a little easily losable device that's got your private key on it. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you need to do that. Think about it. Anyway, so you're going to make a new message here. We've got those sign and encrypt buttons up here, so you get to choose what exactly you want to do. There's this SMIME versus PGP thing, so they support both. I think it's just going to default to whatever it's got. And you've got the subject line. You can actually do attachments. I don't know if the attachments are encrypted or not. That's a good thing to check. And then in the next window, you type your secret message and you click send. And again, this is a little bit scary because it says it's sending the message, but my secret message is right there. Do I know if it's really been encrypted or not? I have to triple check, that I've clicked that encrypt button before hitting send. Then on the receiving side, you want to, decrypt this secret message that's been sent to you. It asks you for your password. You type it in, and you've got your secret message there. And in terms of being able to see, this lock means that it's been encrypted. This little ribbon means that it's been signed, and if it's got a green checkbox or check mark, that means that it's signed and verified. Just because it's signed doesn't mean that it's good. It's just been signed by somebody, so you want to double check that it's signed by the person you think it is. And that's pretty much it. So overall, it doesn't really matter what PGP app you use. The general idea is that you're going to generate or import your public-private key pair. You're going to download and upload public keys to communicate. So you're going to disseminate those widely and download other people's things widely. In between here is the signing, where I get together with Jeremy and I say, hey, what's your key? Let's exchange and sign each other's keys. That way, when you're looking on the key server, it's just public info that Jeremy trusts this and Will trusts that, and that's a little bit better than just trusting something that's up there with no verification back and forth. And then once you've got all that set up, then you can encrypt info with somebody else's public key, send it to them, and they can decrypt, and they can sign stuff with their private key, and back and forth. And that's pretty much it. So I don't think we have a whole bunch of time, but hopefully we'll be able to go back there and at least exchange public keys, and if we haven't already, create some public and private key pairs and upload them. That's pretty much it. Are there questions? Yeah?
I'm just looking up some stuff. I found a tool for OS 10 specifically.
For OS 10?
GPG tools. So that might be worth looking at too.
Yeah.
That's the Mac PG, something like that?
No, it's GPG tools.
Yeah, so there's GPG tools, MacPG, there's lots of Linux and Windows tools. Those let you manage the PGP keys directly, I think, and those are nice. But though, like the nice thing about the Thunderbird and the Enigma plugin is they kind of manage half of that for you. Like I don't think you can actually go in and manage the files directly, but they've got the key ring and they've got the generators and stuff. And so the reason I didn't go into those, the typical, I think, PGP talk is like, okay, download this command line and then type this command in. And I just wanted to avoid all that because we're past that. We don't need that.
Well, actually, PG tools, or the name, it actually allows, it installs a plugin for your mail.
Okay, so PG
Very
tools
nice.
does plugins.
Yeah, it's actually very nice.
Now, which plugins, like Thunderbird plugin or?
No, it's
the Mac Mail.
For the
Okay.
official mail client that
Okay.
Mac comes with.
So for Mac Mail, you use PG tools?
PG tools, yes.
Okay, so I don't use a Mac on a daily basis. The reason I was doing Thunderbird is because that works on Windows, Linux, and Mac. But yeah, for the Mac Mail program, for whatever program you're talking about, there's probably going to be some plugin out there. That's, like the last slide. It's basically the same no matter what app you're using. It's just a matter of finding something that works for you and not being too scared of using them, I guess. Yeah?
And then my more general question is, what's your opinion on best practices with expiration date of keys and then sort of how to manage? Apparently there's an option of like having a key replication certificate.
Key replication.
Use that.
So I'm not sure about key replication service.
Revocation.
Revocation. Oh, key revocation. Okay, so the question is, what about key expiration and key revocation? So expiration, when you create a key, it's going to ask you, or it's going to have a default, how long do you want this key to be valid for? Like a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, forever. I think the recommendation there is to set a relatively low expiration. That way, if 5 years from now, somebody really needs to send you an encrypted message and you've just forgotten about the whole thing, they're not left hanging. So if you end up using PGP on a daily basis, you can kind of have a key automatically expire every couple of years, and you just go through the process, and it's okay because it's slightly more secure. Whereas if you have a expiration set to 20 years from now, that's going to create a whole bunch of junk in the system from people who have long gone, forgotten about PGP, and you don't even use it anymore. So having a recently generated key or recent activity on it publicly, I think shows that people, that you're actually using it. What was that?
Another suggestion too is the crypto community actually has documentation out there for suggested bit levels for keys. So like if, for example, in your example, you're using
4098?
Yeah, bit level, and that is above what's even suggested on like a corporate or like financial institution level at the moment.
Yeah.
They just recently, over the last year, they did have a hard deadline for bumping up to 2048 bit. So basically, you kind of want to plan your expirations to what that compensating for like what you can actually crack or not.
Okay.
Based off of the systems that are out there.
So from a newbie perspective, basically when you're generating a key, it might ask you, or maybe there's an advanced options thing, and it's like, oh, how many bits do you want your key to be? And it's like 1024, 2048, a long 4 or 5 digit number. And you're going to want to maybe do a little bit of research to figure out has a 1024-bit key been cracked? How long until they think a 2048-bit key is going to be cracked? And so maybe that determines how much you want your expiration date to be. As far as revocation, it's another one of those things. Like, we could have a whole full day workshop probably just on PGP and all the implications of using it securely. But in a nutshell, revocation is when let's say you've decided that you follow my workshop, you put your private key on your phone, and your phone gets stolen. Well, you can't trust that your private key is secure anymore. You don't want anybody to send you an encrypted message, because your private key's been busted. So if you, the first step that I said was you generate your public-private key pair, you make a backup of it. You should also generate a revocation certificate or a revocation thing. That way, you lose your phone, you realize that you've been compromised, you go back under your mattress or whatever, grab that revocation certificate, and you publish that. Because the idea here is that we've got this very public side and this very secret side. And so your public key is everywhere. You hope to now get your revocation certificate everywhere. Now everybody knows that that key is no longer good. I don't know about the nuances of best practices for that kind of thing, but that's the idea in a nutshell. Dan?
So in terms of best practices with that, one use for the key revocation certificate is that you can keep that as a backup instead of your private key. That way, if your if your revocation certificate gets stolen, then that's not such a big deal.
Right.
Like, somebody can revoke your key when you just make a new one. Whereas if your private key gets stolen, that's a big deal.
Okay. So I'll repeat that. So the good advice there is, I was telling people, back up your private key. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just back up your revocation certificate. That way, if anything ever happens, you publicize that revocation certificate and come up with a new private key pair, as opposed to having, let's say somebody goes in and they look under your mattress, oh, hey, what wonderful private key you've got there. Well, that's not good, but storing backing up your revocation certificate is not a problem if somebody goes and finds it, other than an inconvenience. And in an emergency, you can just get rid of that. Basically, if you don't do any backups at all, then there's no way for you to tell the world, hey, don't use this anymore. I've got a new one. So you want to back up something. In this case, the recommendation is your revocation certificate. What were you going to say? You had something else. I interrupted you. Oh, okay. Anything else? Or that's it? Okay. Cool. So I'll be back there if you want to tell me your public-private key or public keys, and thank you very much.
Do not give this man his private key.